This is Joe Biden, the resident of the United States. During the fourth week of January 2024, Biden had an unusually busy schedule, giving remarks at 3 different events over the course of 3 days. First, on Tuesday, Joe Biden gave remarks at a campaign event, and it didn't start off great.
Hello, Virginia. And the real governor, Terry McAuliffe.
Is it just me, or does that sound like election denial? Because I was told that if you deny election results, that it's a threat to our democracy and that they can arrest you for election interference.
Why did the president say, hello, Virginia, and the real governor, Terry McAuliffe?
He was making a joke about Terry. He was making a
What's the
joke. If you play it back, it's clearly that the president was making a joke.
What's the joke?
He was making a joke about McAuliffe's previous term as governor.
And again, what was the joke?
The real governor, Terry McAuliffe.
How are you guys going to convince people, though, that this idea of denying election results is very bad if President Biden is going out and making jokes like this?
He did not deny. He did not deny it. We've had opportunities to work closely with the governor over the past couple of years. And, this is a president that works across the aisle. We've seen that many times, and he was making a joke.
So on one hand, Joe Biden has worked across the aisle with the Republican governor Glenn Youngkin, but at the same time, Joe Biden just shit all over him, claiming that the Democrat who ran against Youngkin is the real governor. So much for uniting the country.
My name's Joe Biden. I'm Jill Biden's husband and Kamala's running mate. Kidding aside.
But is he really kidding? Because when he says that he's Kamala's running mate, there's probably more truth to it than he wants to admit. Because no one actually believes that if Joe Biden is reelected that he'll be mentally or physically able to finish a second term. Which means that if you vote for Joe Biden in 2024, you're actually voting for President Kamala Harris. Thanks for the reminder, Joe. Anyway, for the Tuesday event, Biden was there to give remarks regarding so-called reproductive rights. Well, at least he tried to.
Jill and I had a chance to sit down. The new Supreme Court made an extreme decision overturning Roe v. Wade with their Dobbs decision. I'm sorry it's taking so long. Yesterday marked the 51st anniversary of Roe v. Wade, which recognized the woman's constitutional right to choose. Her right to make deeply personal. We're going to have this going to go on for a while. We got a couple more of these, I think. Yes.
And Joe Biden's speech was interrupted a total of 15 times. And at first, he seemed empathetic.
They feel deeply.
But as the interruptions racked up, you could see that Biden was visibly flustered. And when that happens, he tends to lose the ability to sound coherent. And today was no exception.
We'll teach Donald Trump a valuable lesson. Don't mess with the women in America unless you want to get the benefit.
And after the 14th time getting interrupted by protesters, Joe Biden's world-famous empathy simply ran out.
Look, please don't jump.
The reality is that Joe Biden hates Joe Biden protesters, and he's used that "don't jump" line in the past in response to hecklers.
Don't jump! Don't jump! Don't jump!
Thank you, sir.
You hear the tone in his voice, right? Don't jump! Wouldn't want you to kill yourself. Here's another example.
Hey. Hey man, don't jump. You look crazy enough to jump. Don't jump. Don't jump.
Just remember, peaceful protesting is fine as long as it's not against Joe Biden.
Don't jump. You look crazy enough to jump.
Joe Biden's Wednesday address was to the United Auto Workers Union, where he spewed a ton of bullshit about how great the economy is.
We have the lowest inflation and fastest recovery of any major economy in the world.
Biden has to use the major economy qualifier because technically there are currently 69 countries in the world with a lower inflation rate than the United States. But does the US have a lower inflation rate when it comes to only the top economies? No, it doesn't. When it comes to the G20, i.e. the largest economies in the world, as of December 2023, the United States is tied with the 11th lowest inflation rate.
We have the fastest growing economy in the world.
And here, Biden didn't say major economy. Instead, he said we have the fastest growing economy in the world. Which is not true, of course. That would be the country of Guyana in South America, who has seen tremendous growth over the last 9 years thanks to the discovery of oil. And it's not only Joe Biden lying about the strength of our economy, it's also his dumbass press secretary, i.e. historical figure, Karine Jean-Pierre.
This week we saw more evidence that our economy is strong and inflation is falling under President Biden. Inflation has now fallen back to pre-pandemic levels.
That is provably 100% false. In December 2023, the inflation rate was 3.4% year over year. The highest year-over-year inflation rate under Donald Trump was 2.9%, and the last time that inflation was 3.4% pre-pandemic was November 2011. In other words, Karine Jean-Pierre is lying. Democrats have been complaining for a while now that when it comes to the economy, Americans aren't giving the Democrats the credit that they deserve. But the problem is that no matter what they say, everyone knows that the economy was better under Trump. But instead of taking any responsibility for what's going on under his watch, Biden's go-to is to blame Trump for anything and everything.
China's determined to dominate that market with EV predominantly made in China and Chinese jobs. The previous administration was content to sit in the sidelines and let China take all these jobs. But I won't let that happen. I will not.
However, American companies like Ford and General Motors are manufacturing electric vehicles in China, like the 2024 Lincoln Nautilus and the 2024 Buick Envision. In other words, Biden's letting it happen. Not that there's much that Biden can do about it. I mean, when President Trump was in office, he put in place a 25% tariff on Chinese-made cars imported into the United States. So you can't honestly claim that Trump sat on the sidelines. Maybe instead of falsely blaming Orange Man bad, Biden should be chastising American companies for manufacturing in China. But that would mean being honest, so scrap that idea.
Well, guess what? I'm going back to that. We build in America, we buy America.
However, Biden's vision of an EV future is wholly dependent on countries other than America, because to manufacture batteries for electric vehicles, you need minerals that aren't found here in the United States. This includes lithium, found in countries like China, Chile, and Australia, manganese, found in South Africa and Gabon, and bauxite, which is used to make aluminum, and that's found in countries like China, Guinea, and Brazil. And while green energy types insist on Americans going all in on electric vehicles within the next decade or so, they won't let mining companies in America take advantage of America's vast resources of cobalt and nickel that are needed to manufacture EV batteries. Instead, we'll get our cobalt from the Democratic Republic of Congo, and we'll get our nickel from Indonesia and Canada.
You all know my position. I'm tired. I've tried, I'm tired about jobs going overseas, having products shipped to. Look.
I mean, sure, we could dig for those minerals here, but Joe Biden won't even let us expand drilling for oil and natural gas. It's classic, not in my backyard, Biden bullshit. Now, while Joe Biden received the UAW's endorsement, which is supposedly a big deal, its president, Sean Fain, immediately let the air out of the tires.
Let me be clear about this. A great majority of our members will not vote for President Biden. Yes, some will. But that's the reality of this. The majority of our members are going to vote their paychecks.
And you can be sure that seeing Joe Biden malfunction on a daily basis is also a huge factor in how they're going to cast their votes in November.
My bipartisan infrastructure law is building a network of 500,000 electric vehicle charging stations all across America, installed by your brothers and sisters at the IABW. That's what's doing it. The UAW has been expanding its reach to workers in auto plants and from auto plants to casinos. Walter Luther organized a sit-down in the factory. Because of you, Toyota, Volkswagen, Nissan, Tulsa all gave their workers double-digit raises.
Because of you.
By Thursday, his third event in 3 days, Biden was visibly exhausted.
I'm proud to announce $1 billion from the bipartisan infrastructure law will be used to build this new bridge. Look, 14 million new jobs since I became president. 169 new jobs in Wisconsin. My professor, well, I won't get into my professor. Well, look, my predecessor, though, he chose a different course, trickle-down economics. And employment has been below 4% for the longest stretch in 50 years. And we still brought the deficit down by $7 billion. And by the way, it used to make the beer brewed here, it is used to make the brewed beer here in this refinery. Oh, Earth Rider, thanks for the Great Lakes. I wonder why it's trying.
Then Biden wrapped things up by knocking on a barrel, presumably listening for a child to knock back or something. And all that pales in comparison to what happened after Joe Biden's remarks. Senator Amy Klobuchar of Minnesota posted this picture of herself, some ironworkers, and Joe Biden. Joe Biden claims that he's the most pro-labor, pro-union president ever, yet somehow he managed to put on a hard hat backwards. And we all know that it was on backwards because here is the same hat worn by its owner. You can see that the hat's suspension has the tightening knob on the back of his head. What the iron worker did was connect the suspension of the hat and reverse it so that the bill of the hat faced the back. And to reiterate, the dial adjustment of the suspension always goes on the back of your head. Or does it? Well, the very left-leaning fact-checking website Snopes decided to get to the bottom of all this and attempt to explain that actually Joe Biden wasn't wearing that hat backwards. It does look at first glance like Biden was wearing that hard hat backwards, but after comparing it to other photos and videos of the same event, we were forced to reach the opposite conclusion. The hat on Biden's head was facing forward, bill to the front, not backward. Do construction workers sometimes wear their hard hats backwards? Yes. But to do so, the internal suspension has to be reversed to fit correctly, which explains why, when Biden donned the hat with the brim forward, the nape strap ended up on his forehead. So what Snopes is saying is that because the brim of the hat was facing forward, that Joe Biden wasn't actually wearing it backwards. But at the same time, they contradicted themselves with their shoddy explanation. To back up their fact check, Snopes posted part of a hard hat FAQ that says, be sure that the suspension has been reversed so that the nape strap is in the rear. But since Biden was wearing it with the nape strap in front, that would mean he was wearing it backwards, right? Not according to Snopes, because despite all of the evidence, they rated the claim that Biden wore the hat backwards as false. And users on X went into wrecking ball mode to counter Snopes' bullshit. Not to be wrote. Snopes wrote an entire fact check to convince you Biden didn't wear this hard hat backward. Mostly Peaceful Memes wrote, Snopes just wrote an entire article about how Joe Biden didn't actually wear a hard hat backwards, despite video and photographic evidence that he did. The Dank Knight wrote, Snopes just fact-checked this picture and claimed it's false that the hard hat was backwards. Your eyes and brain were incorrect according to them. They also assure us that the border is fine and the economy is fantastic. And Matt Orfalea wrote, literally all Snopes had to do, besides have any experience at all wearing a helmet, is simply open any user manual or instructions. Snopes. He's wearing the nape strap in the front. Nape literally means back of the neck. He's wearing it backward. This isn't rocket science. And Snopes got roasted so f***ing hard that they were forced to change the rating from false to true. Of course, you should be troubled that the so-called fact checkers felt the need to create an article for this stupid picture in the first place, when they should have been fact-checking all of his lies about the economy. But instead, they'd much rather protect Joe Biden than the Democrats, even if it costs them their integrity. Anyway, that's it for now. Follow me on X at Don't Walk Run, and while you're at it, subscribe to the channel. As always, thanks for tuning in, and I hope to see you next time, if there is next time.